Welcome to Monday Motivations, 52 Weeks to a More Purposeful You. Corry Mendoza here, and I have my dear friend, Jeremiah Miller on the show. I'm so excited to have him. We're going to be talking about things happen for us, and I honestly couldn't think of a better person. Jeremiah is probably the most grateful person I have ever met in my life. It's genuine, it's a lifestyle, it's a practice, it's who he is, and he is constantly reframing adversities and challenges into, he doesn't say things happen for us, but he lives things happen for us. So we'll get into that topic in a minute, but I want to tell, for those of you who aren't blessed enough to know him yet, my best friend's calling me. I'm going to read his bio. So Jeremiah Miller is a leadership coach and the founder of Forging Leaders. For the last 13 years, he's been working with business owners, executives, and other leaders to change the bad behaviors that keep them and their organizations stuck. Jeremiah lives with his wife, Andrea, and 5-year-old son, Gable, in Roseville, California. And you guys have an adorable dog. Tell us about it.
We have an adorable dog. Yeah, thank you for having me on here. I've been looking forward to this.
Yeah.
I mean, you and I have a lot of great conversations, and here's a chance to record it and share it with other people.
Yeah, absolutely. And Jeremiah has, we're friends, we're colleagues, but he's also done extensive coaching with myself, my husband, Rusty. We refer him to just about everybody that can work with you. You're amazing. So
Thank you. And this is my first podcast with my new teeth. I got veneers.
Oh my gosh, I didn't even know.
Yeah. So
now I want to talk about that. Because, okay,
I get to show them off with my big smile now that I don't have like weasel teeth from my teeth chipping on each other from lack of overbite. But
oh my gosh,
thank you for a chance to show them off.
They look great. So great. Now I'm embarrassed about my teeth. Mine are crooked. I never had braces. My parents were poor. We couldn't give me braces. But
5 years Invisalign. I was in Invisalign longer than I was in high school.
Oh, okay. We're definitely going to talk about that. We're going to do coffee. Okay. So message 21, things happen for us. The quote at the top is, there is no security in this life. There is only opportunity. What did you think about this week's message?
Yeah, I liked the story of your mom and how her attitude, despite having a bunch of setbacks and going back to school and getting her teaching credential later in life, she had a really positive attitude about it. And it's funny, in the story you share that you were getting angry for her, like at all these setbacks that she was having, but her attitude was like, it's okay and it's not a bad thing. And this idea that I like how you put things happen for us, because in my work I help people like be more powerful, and there are more powerful and less powerful ways to think about things, and more powerful and less powerful ways to do things. Mm-hmm. So there are more effective and less effective approaches to just about everything. Mm-hmm. And it's a really disempowering perspective to think that things happen to us. And that we're a victim and we're powerless and we're not in control and we can't do anything about it. Whereas things happen for us, that's a more empowering perspective. I think it allows us to step in and take some ownership, as opposed to thinking of like, woe is me, think horrible things are happening to me. It's like, wow, look what's happening for me. I wonder what I should do with it.
Yeah. Do you, because I know that, everything that you train on and inspire, it's all about empowerment. And I love that about you. Do you ever have times when you feel like stuff is happening to you or a person did something to you?
Yeah.
Are you human?
On my birthday, so I turned 47 on November 11th. And after dinner, I went out and walked our dog around the neighborhood. And this big dog that also lives in our neighborhood, who has been aggressive before, got out of the front door of our neighbor's house and ran down the street and attacked us and bit my dog and tried to bite me. Um, and it took a minute or so for them to come down and get their dog. So the whole time I'm trying to basically like protect us, fight this 110-pound dog off. And as soon as I turned around and realized this dog was in our face, it had bit my dog in the butt and like whipped my dog around. In that moment, my back went out. So I have injured back, low back. And in reacting and turning to this dog attack, I had a back spasm, like a really bad one. So there I am for a minute, maybe it wasn't a minute, but it felt like an hour. But I'm for a minute trying to fight off this dog, trying to kick at it and keep distance and try to hold my dog behind me and not get bit again. And my dog's freaking out. And that was the first time in my adult life where I was like a victim of violence, where I felt helpless in the situation. I was a wrestler in college. I was a mixed martial art fighter. I feel like I've always been able to handle myself in physical situations. And this was the first time in my adult life where I couldn't. And it like messed with me. I was, asked my wife, I was like distraught. I was out of sorts and I was so angry. And it took me a while to process it. Called my mentor the next day, who in biblical discipleship, and I'm like, Bill, man, I need help. I'm so angry at this woman. I'm having the owner of the dog, who then, by the way, after the dog attack, I called her and she blamed it all on my dog. That somehow like my dog is causing their dog to attack us, So anyway, so I call him and I'm like, I'm having real hard time forgiving her. And it took a while, a week, maybe, I don't know, but it took time for me to forgive her. And during that process, and I know this isn't like a huge trauma,
No,
compared to what other people have, but it's good because it's recent, and it was significant for me.
Yes.
I'm again, because of my experience with fighting and all that, I've never been in a situation like that. And it was, I remember like that night, even the night it happened, I was so angry. I was yelling at Andrea. I was like distraught. And I remember praying about it. And even in the moment, I didn't feel grateful for it. I remember that night praying, Lord, thank you for this trial. I'm learning I will come out of this having more empathy for people who are victims or people who are in powerless situations and feel like a victim than I had yesterday. And it gave me, well, number one, I believe it. I believe that. I believe that because I had a back injury, well, can have more empathy and can relate with people who struggle with chronic pain.
Yeah.
The way I can gain different perspectives other than my own is by going through experiences I've never been through before, and often like crappy experiences. And so not only do I believe that I am grateful for the trial, but I also know, because of the work I do, I know that that's a powerful perspective to have, because that is going to allow me to own what I can, forgive what I can't, forgive what I can't own or change, and move through it a lot quicker, and not get knocked off the course of who I want to be by something that happened to me.
Yeah. And sometimes we don't realize why, or we can't find the answer to, or we can't find the meaning or the purpose in it when we're going through it.
Yeah, it's hard. It is hard. Um, One thing I know is I've messed up a lot in my life. I've tried things the wrong way a lot. And as a 47-year-old dude, it's important to me to be the man that I aspire to be. I'm not him yet, but I want to be a more engaged and better, more caring husband. I want to be a more present and engaged and better role model as a father for my son, and just love him so deeply in a way that he never has to wonder if he's good enough. And I'm clear on who I want to be, and faith is a big part of that for me. I want to be the son that God wants me to be, and that Christ modeled for us. And because I know that, and I know that my perspective is the most important thing to getting there. I
Yes.
can go through any situation in my life, good or bad, whatever, it doesn't matter what it is. And if I have the wrong perspective or a weak perspective, it's not like it's wasting my life.
Yeah.
It's creating a negative impact on me and the people around me. And in any situation, it can be worked for the good. And that was, I didn't learn that until late in life, but that has been such a powerful idea. This idea that you shared in your story, um, and I see like one of the biggest problems in the world that I run into is people are stuck, and people are feeling powerless in some area of their life, and it causes, like, as a result of that, they create a lot of damage in their life, and they do things they regret later, and they hurt people, and marriages fall apart and things fail and all of that sort of stuff. And I'm fascinated, intrigued, interested in this idea that we can be powerful in any situation, and nobody has to give us that power. It's just in the way we think about it, and then what we do about it. So I think that's amazing, because I was a train wreck earlier in my life, really angry, my dad leaving when I was 3. And it wasn't until I was like 35, maybe 34, that going through bankruptcy and like really screwing things up, that I finally learned that lesson, that I have a lot of power, but the way I need to think about things in a healthy, effective way if I'm going to be powerful in my life.
You've said so many good things. I wanted to get off on this bunny trail and this cul-de-sac, but a couple of things, even though it's just filled with so much great things we could go and discuss, is about the power to choose our perspective. And that's what this message was really about, is just offering one kind of a phrase or a mantra to cause us to shape the way we think about things. And it supports situations where we need to forgive. And actually just recently, I made a post on Facebook about the difference between thinking he or she did this to me, or I was hurt, or no, it was the distinction between he or she hurt me or I was hurt. And it's kind of like, yeah, it might be true that somebody did a behavior that hurt us or harm us, but just shifting the language into I was hurt and I'm still hurting now, it empowers us. When we get injured, it's up to us now to go, like you had to go and fix your back again. It's, like, what were you going to do? Just be mad at this lady forever? And like, no, so yeah, just.
And now we work together to coordinate dog walking schedules. So they're not going to
Really?
keep attacking us. Yeah.
Wow, that's awesome. I
And
think you could say more about that. Can you just like elaborate a little bit more? How did you go from being angry? No, how did you go from this woman blaming you, you being hurt and angry, to being able to communicate and coordinate a dog walking schedule? Because people today are struggling to do that. They're struggling to shift from this to that.
yeah, well, I learned about aggressive dog rules. And one thing I learned is unless a dog like severely injures a person or kills another dog, there's not a lot you can do about it. So I within a week of this or a few days of this incident, because we started coordinating dog walks pretty quick, um, I realized that we're going to live in this neighborhood for a while, and they're going to live in this neighborhood for a while. And so, what do I want? What do I want? I know I was angry and felt like unjustified in how it went down and that she didn't own it. But do I want to live in a neighborhood where we can walk our dog and feel safe and have healthier relationships with our neighbors? Or do I want to be angry? And often, like, it really does come down to a choice about stuff like that. Do I, my anger at my dad had a negative impact on my life for like 30 years. Do I want it to have a negative impact on my life for 60 years? Or am I ready to like take the power back and not let that old hurt continue to have power over me? But I see, and the great thing about, here's the great thing about messing up, screwing things up a lot, making a lot of mistakes, taking a while to learn things, is the great thing about that is that I've learned things now that I can share with other people and that I can help other people with. It's the difference between knowledge and wisdom. Like knowledge, I could take a weekend course and get certified in whatever. But wisdom is learned through personal experience, usually negative personal experience, as you know, in gaining all the wisdom you've gained in the past decade.
I'm a very wise woman. I'm kidding.
Yeah, and what a gift that our trials are, because now we're more powerful. We can use the wisdom we've gained.
Yep.
And there's so much power in that. So what did I do? I reached out and we started coordinating, text message. So this morning I walked Duke at like 6:30, send her a text right before we go out. I'm taking Duke out. She texts me, I'm taking Loki out at 2:00. And so we're always coordinating that. Because I care more about the outcome than I do about being angry.
Yeah. Were like the initial communication after the incident, did you notice any like resistance or bitterness or any negative emotions or thoughts before you took that first step in communicating? Or
Oh yeah.
okay.
Yeah, I was not like kumbaya. I was not
Trying
feeling.
to put like biatch at the end, or like just like there I want to like know what it was like.
I was really angry still. I was angry, and I had a little bit of anxiety for weeks walking our dog after that, because it was the second time that her dog had attacked us at that point.
Okay, now I'm mad at her. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, and not intentionally, but neglect or whatever, it happened. So I was upset, I was pissed off, and I knew that if I want to have a good life and be a good leader in my life and be a good leader in my family and all those things, that I can't let that, I have to act in spite of how I feel.
Yeah, it makes me think of, the definition of courage that gets thrown around a lot is, courage is acting in spite of fear.
Right.
Well, forgiveness, it's also behaving kindly despite maybe feelings of bitterness or feelings of, they say love is a verb. So it's
Right.
sometimes the actions that we have, they end up leading us towards our feelings of forgiveness, even if we don't have the feelings from the beginning. And I'm curious, has there been a moment yet of where the communication interaction with her went from it being negative to maybe softening and being a little warm or kind, or has that happened yet?
Yeah, it probably took a few weeks. I see her in the neighborhood. I wave at her. She waves at me. Um, so I'm not angry at her anymore. I don't have any hard feelings against her. She's a single mom. She has 3 boys that live at home. They left the door open. They got too big of a dog that they can't manage, but they love their dog. It's like they're not evil. And forgiveness is like the key to life. But you and I, as believers, we have a real advantage. I work with all sorts of people who are believers, who have faith in their life, who don't have faith in their life. I work with leaders in business, and it's almost impossible, not impossible, but it's incredibly difficult to offer grace to somebody. Grace is unearned forgiveness. So forgiving someone when they don't deserve it. Maybe they never apologized. Maybe they did, but it sucked. So to offer grace to somebody is almost impossible if you have not been forgiven.
Mhm.
And that's such an important element of faith is I know I've been forgiven. And so I can grant forgiveness. And I know I've been loved. Even though my dad abandoned me, I have a heavenly father who loves me. I have other people, my mom, my wife, other people love me. And because I have been loved, I can love. It is such a handicap to not experience being forgiven completely because it makes it really, really difficult to offer grace to other people.
And we have so much opportunity to extend that to each other. And I'm really grateful that we took our time together today to kind of unpack that life experience, because when you started sharing it, you were a little apologetic, like it wasn't like this big example, but I'm really glad that we use this example because it is a big example. And these are the kinds of things that all of us every day, we have life experiences that impact us greatly, and they're actually opportunities for us to grow. So it really is, things don't happen to us, they happen for us. And just last Saturday, my son James was at a flag football game, and there was a moment where his team pulled the flag of the other team's player, but then the coach, they didn't call the flag. They just kept playing, and they never, and us parents on the sidelines were like, the flag, like, well, the high school kid that's a coach on the other team walked over, and there's this man, one of our players, the dad, and this high school kid yells to the dad, points his finger and says, "Shut the F up." And we're all like jaws dropped. And then, so of course, we're all like kind of talking about it the rest of the last 15 minutes of the game. And then other people are like, well, you shouldn't have been saying anything. Like, and it's just like, there's just all of this negative experience. But the way that man handled it, he didn't, the father, he didn't bark back. He did speak to the guy who organizes it and let them know the conduct, what happened. But I ended up sending the wife a text during the week, and I just said, I just want you to know I'm sorry what happened. And you both handled it in such a dignified way. They didn't chime in the conversation. They just kind of absorbed it. I don't know how they feel in their hearts,
Yeah.
but I think when we practice humility and forgiveness, and we're real with ourselves, that it is a process, other people benefit from it. You know, it inspired me seeing how they handled it, and it inspires me hearing your journey with your neighbor and her dog.
It's like the hardest thing in the world to love your enemy, to forgive somebody who doesn't deserve it, um, to be humble, to ask for advice from somebody who looks down on you. Like these are the superhero, supernatural moments that we have, or the opportunities that we have. And I have seen time and time again. I don't always take them.
Yeah.
There's times when I'm just not there in the moment, and so I don't. And I regret that later. But those are the moments that help prepare us for the most important moments in our life. I look at the thing with the dog and the neighbor. It's practice. There is going to be a moment in my life where the stakes are really, really high in my marriage, with my son, in some situation where I'm going to need courage, humility, grace, forgiveness, love. I'm going to need really good character. And if I never practice, I'm screwed.
Yeah. It's like a muscle. It's so weak.
Totally. Totally. Yeah. Forgiveness is a muscle. All of these things you're describing. When we practice them, even in little ways, we get stronger in them. And when we don't practice them or avoid the bad, interactions or the difficult people, we get weaker. And we've talked about the blessing of difficult people before. Like the moments that test us in life are the most important moments, because we're usually not tested. We're surrounded by people who think we're funny and kind, and you said a lot of nice things about me in the intro, and so it feels great. But where you and I are really tested and have these moments to be stronger are in the impossible situations that we get in,
where we feel powerless,
where we feel powerless.
And for me, and I know for you, it's in those moments that I do draw on God. And that's what my mom always tells me too, like kind of going back to the story, is that my mom, she can be kind of like a swan. It seems like everything's okay on the inside, but inside she had so much turmoil. I mean, she didn't get a steady job for, I think it was like 6 or 7 years. Like it was after, and so she did have her own internal struggle, but she always says that she leaned on God. And then one more thing before we kind of start landing our plane, is that I heard someone say one time that we go to school and we learn to test, but in life we get tested to learn. So it's kind of like what you were saying.
Yep. It's the trials that are the value in our life. It is. It's been my experience. I think it's been your experience. It's been the experience of everyone I work with. The most important things we learn as humans are learned through struggle and trial and heartache and regret and resentment and despair and grieving. And we go through really difficult things. And that's how we learn the most important things that we learn. That's how we learn the things that we cherish the rest of our life.
Yeah.
And I encourage anyone who's listening to this to don't let those opportunities go. Recognize them as practice. The outcome of the thing with my neighbor wasn't the biggest thing in the world, And I reacted like a total baby when in the hours after it happened. Um, but to respond, I want to show my son forgiveness and grace. And I want, it's not just for me. I want to teach the people I love the most important things. And I'll tell you what, the very best way to do it is for them to see you, how you go through a difficult time.
100%. 100%. Yeah, this is good. I'm getting so much out of this. Well, and it's kind of like how you said the things that we go through. Well, I'm just thinking about what you went through as a young boy to not have your dad in your life. And now, if you could talk a little bit about how you've taken that pain and you worked through the anger and you now have forgiveness towards your dad, and now you're doing Forging Disciples. So can you
Yeah.
speak to our audience a little bit about that ministry?
Yeah. So my dad left when I was 3, and I was super angry for decades. That's why I got into wrestling and mixed martial arts, so I could beat people up, not get in trouble for it, because I was really pissed off and I had to take my aggression out somewhere. It's interesting, like 85% of fighters don't have a relationship with their father.
Wow.
A lot
I
of
did
pent
not
up
know that
anger.
stat.
And actually, if you are somebody who grew up with a really nice childhood, a lot of safety and security, you are at a disadvantage when it comes to like high level combat sports, physical sports, because you don't have
Then I should have gone
anger.
into combat sport.
Totally.
I totally missed my calling. No.
It's not too late. Jiu-jitsu is a good sport for people in their 30s and 40s. So I had a ton of anger in my life, and in my 30s, my dad reached out to me, or no, I found him on MySpace, sent him a curse-laden email through MySpace, and he replied. I basically blamed everything in my life on my dad. He replied and said, I wish I saved it, but said something like, I'm so glad you reached out. There's not a day when I don't think about you. You know, we hadn't talked in 15 years by that point. And I'm so sorry. I wish I was there for you. I regret ever leaving. And that, him owning it, opened up a conversation. And 6 months later, I think we were out in visiting him in North Carolina, and I asked him for forgiveness for all the anger that I've had against him for 30 years and all the blame I've put on him, and how I've been thinking about him and talking about him for my whole life. And he owned it, and he asked for forgiveness, and so we had a reconciliation. It wasn't until that, like, I saw people who had faith, and I had a lot of respect for people who have faith in their life, and I saw the fruits of that. I had friends who were believers, and I saw it, like they had a level of patience and of self-control and these things that I didn't have in my life. They could forgive and like let it go, and I couldn't. And so I wanted that. I wanted the fruits of faith, of having a relationship with God. Couldn't do it. My dad left. If my earthly father won't even be there for me, how can I possibly believe in an imaginary sky god, sky father? Because like as boys, our model for God is our dad. If my dad wasn't there, God's not there. So once I reconciled with him, I found that I could start to have a little kernel of faith, and it opened up things for me in my life. And 6 years ago, I met a guy who's now my mentor. His name's Bill, and I met him when I was volunteering for an organization called Shoulder to Shoulder, which is a mentorship of fatherless inner city kids. And I was a mentor there, and he asked me about my dad. We had a conversation one day, and he's like, "You ever thought about being discipled?" And I said, "I don't even know what that is. What does that even mean?" And he told me. It's like, well, it would be, it's like a mentorship. It's like someone to walk alongside you and help you understand who God is, what he says, what he means by what he says, and how that relates to your life and what you can do with that. And so I said yes, and we started this relationship, and he helped me a lot, and it's been transformational in my life. And then like 3 years ago, he stepped down. He's 78 now. He stepped down from the board of that nonprofit and started a new organization focused on discipling men. So Forging Disciples is a discipleship organization. We work with men one-on-one to help them do that, help them get to know who God is, and really help the guy. I don't know any guys who are looking for discipleship. I know a lot of guys who are looking for a solution to the things they keep messing up in their life.
Yeah.
And so we help guys who are looking to God, see God as a solution maybe to their messed up life that they've created for themselves, and we help them get to know who He is, and then what He says, what the Bible says about how we should live our lives as men.
Ugh.
Pretty awesome.
Pretty awesome how it came full circle.
It's how God works.
Yeah.
That's how it works. And
Yeah.
before I was a believer, I would have said that's how the universe works.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The struggle we go through becomes the most valuable thing we know, because the only way to gain the knowledge and the wisdom is going through the struggle, like with you and your children. There's no other way to learn what you've learned except by going through it.
Yep.
And now that you've been through it, you have this precious thing that you can use to help other people.
Mm-hmm.
And that it's incredible. It's beautiful. And that gives a lot of meaning and purpose to the struggles that we go through in our life.
Yeah. Yep. And that's having that perspective that things don't happen to us, they happen for us. That's kind of like our fuel, keeping that perspective.
Things happen to us. It tends to lead to a life of blame and excuses and disappointment and hurt and powerlessness, frustration. And like, if you're okay with that, then go ahead. Blame everyone else.
It did happen to you, then it did.
Right.
So in closing, if you could just kind of sum up in a quick nutshell, what would you say is your advice to yourself and to others on this topic of things happen to us, or things don't happen to us, things happen for us?
My advice on that is determine what you want as the outcome. Something bad happens to you. You lose your job, or a relationship falls apart, or you get sick. Well, what's the story that you want to tell coming out of this situation? Mm-hmm. And as crazy as it sounds, if you're clear about what you want to happen, mm-hmm. you can act in a way that will create that story. Mm-hmm. And if you're not clear about what you want to happen, if like I have done plenty of times in my own life, if we just are reactive mm-hmm. and react to things that happen to us without thinking about what we want and what's important to us, then we end up in a really crappy place with a lot more to repair. So I would encourage you, me, people, any moment, you always have a choice.
Yes. Tagline of Volition.
Tagline. And you do. It's the truth. You always have a choice. And I just had this conversation with a client a couple weeks ago. She's an executive in biotech, and she was getting advice from the people who loved her the most. And their advice for her was more centered around her feelings in the moment than what's good for her in the long run and what she wants in the long run. Mm-hmm. and the conversations I have with people all the time, because I don't have that, I'm not emotionally tied to what happens today. Like, you know, your husband is, or other people in our life who give us advice are.
Mhm,
Uh, and I just encouraged her. So, like, what's the outcome you want? And how
mhm,
can you behave in a way that is likely to get what you want?
mm. I love that.
And
What?
any of us can do that. Even me.
Yeah,
No,
yeah.
it's hard.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I totally agree with that. Asking ourselves, what do you want? And the one thing that I'll add to that, in closing, is that when we're in, say it's a severely hopeless situation, like what I went through for 9 years or 8 years with my kids. And like I couldn't even see what can I even want from this, because there was so much to grieve and so much was irrevocable that it's like, how there really nothing good can come from this. I want to encourage people listening, stick with the question, what do you want? Keep wrestling with it, because what happens is sometimes the initial things that we want, it's not what really matters most to us. So I wanted, please invite me to 8th grade graduation. Like I would grieve one thing after another, after another. And then by the end, when I was completely liberated from the situation, I was like, I want my kids to be in eternity with me. Like that, like literally. And I was like, and I leaned on prayer. Like, I mean, it was just like, it didn't matter anymore. Nothing could be taken from me because my want was elevated. So I want to encourage people, yes, always ask, what do I want? And then be ready for your want to change. So people can find you at forgingleaders.com and forgingdisciples.com. Is that right?
Forgingdisciples.org.
Okay, forgingdisciples.org and forgingleaders.com. Thank you so much. I just had so much fun, and wow,
really fun.
this I had no idea it was going to turn into a lesson on forgiveness.
Me neither.
Yeah, so everybody, please join us again next week. It's going to be week 22, the pig story, and it's going to be awesome. So thank you for joining us, and have a great week. Thanks, Jeremiah.
Thanks, Corry.